I got a DM from a parent who was basically asking me, how do I empathize with my children who have done everything right, but still have this huge amount of college debt and are dealing with the rising of taxes and because of politicians, and really just people who my young children who are going into their lives but are saddled with so much debt. How do I empathize with them because I know they've done everything right? And I thought about this question, and what really came to me was that it's not that person's fault or the children's fault that they're saddled with this kind of debt. It's really the American education system's fault, and I'll tell you why. There are so many other options for other than four-year college at a brick and mortar college, so a college is like standing there, like University of Virginia. But the problem is that the education system tricks parents into thinking that if their kids aren't going to a four-year actual college like UVA, it's not a real education. So community college is talked about as a last resort. Things like online classes are thought of as being less than real college, even though it's the same kind of curriculum. There's all these things that culminate in parents believing or being tricked into thinking that unless their kid's going to an actual college of 4 years, they're not up to the level of other kids. And in reality, a lot of the costs for why young people are saddled with debt, I believe the average for public college graduates of four-year colleges is $26,900. The reason why that happens is because there's all these other costs aside from the tuition. There's the living expenses, there's commuting if you live somewhere else, there's all of these other things you have to buy. So the tuition is just the basic amount. And I think what happens is the American education system, and this starts really young, whether they're in preschool or high school, whatever, it pushes this idea that only people with bad grades go to community college. I used to believe that. Only kids who can't go to a physical school, like if they're ill, do online school. So parents have to let themselves come out of this bubble of thinking that if you're not going to a four-year college, you're somehow that's standalone and like a brick and mortar, and somehow you're a failure. And I think what that comes down to is doing independent research. So online courses where you could be online and actually be working at a minimum wage job or be saving or doing an internship, that's a good thing. Parents have to let themselves believe that. Again, in this message I got, it was really good because he was basically saying, how do I empathize with them? Because I know they've done everything well. I don't know if it's really empathizing, but it's trying to work together to find solutions. So if your kid is saddled with, I believe the average for graduates of private four-year colleges is $32,000. If your kid is saddled with that, and you think it's somehow they failed if they're staying home while working, you have to get past that, because there's a lot of kids who are in this bad pocket right now where they went to four-year colleges because they thought if they did 2 years at a community college, or if they did, a couple years online, that was a failure. They're in this pocket where they have all this student debt and they don't know what to do. So it's not so much empathizing as it's finding common sense solutions, like them working at home, them living at home while they're working, so they can save money, so they can start to pay down that debt. Or if they're still in college, maybe saying, why don't you do some of your courses online if your school offers that, so you can work and start to pay some of it down. It's finding these common sense solutions. And it's also, I think it's really important because I know a lot of conservative parents, they obviously pay attention to what young conservative commentators are saying. Young conservative commentators like to pretend that it's a failure if you live at home. That's not really the case. There are some young conservative commentators who are quite a bit older who live at home. So you have to get past also your political side in judging your kids or your friends' kids, or just kids that you know, if they're living at home. It's not necessary. And I think the main point of this is, don't let the American education system make you think that if your kids are going to an online college, that it's less of a degree, because it's not. It's the same amount of work. If anything, it's just streamlining the education process. And if your kid's talking about 2 years of community college to begin with, that doesn't mean they failed. It just means you want to either go at a slower pace or have less of the huge amounts of tuition costs. There is that sort of understanding in the youth world in high school that if you're going to a community college, you failed. You have to get past that. And that starts with parents doing research about community college, online colleges, and also doing a lot of research on the actual worth of a degree from certain schools. Because even though it's a standalone brick and mortar college and it has all these rankings, it doesn't actually mean that a lot of kids are going from there to high level jobs. So it's all sorts of things. And in terms of empathizing for the person that sent in that DM, It's not even so much being emotional and empathizing, it's just working to find common sense solutions and not judging if they have to live at home while they're working. I'm not talking about kids who just go to college and come home and never do anything. I'm talking about kids who are trying to plan their life out. It's a changing job market now as well. A lot of startups are not so popular anymore, so a lot of kids who might have gone that career path aren't anymore. So it's really important that you're not taking your political judgments and how you view young liberals and applying them to your own kids who are not liberals, or even who might be but are not lazy. Thank you, everyone. And remember, if you're a parent whose kid is going to college or you're a couple years away from that, dive into actual online education. And also, you don't have to go to a college far away from your home to be successful. That's unless it's like MIT or Caltech. That's a misconception. So understand that just because guidance counselors tell you that, that's a big deal. That they're going to a college in three other states, going to a college 3 states away, that's not true. Thank you, everyone, and please like and share this and have a happy Thanksgiving.